So I've mentioned to a few friends that I'm gonna make homemade hot dogs, and 100% of the time I get the same knee-jerk reaction. Ew. But think about that. Why is it ew? It's ew because we know what, like Oscar Mayer and different places like that, we know what they're doing with hot dogs. But when we make them from home, they're all pure, fresh, quality ingredients, and there's nothing gross about it. So let's do it. So we are going to start with a brisket flat. Now, I don't need all of this for this first batch of hot dogs that I'm doing, but we're gonna cut 1,125 grams off of this brisket. Now, it's not the whole brisket, it's just the flat, and that's important because we want the fat cap to remain intact. I'll go through and I'll kind of trim some of the sinew off so that we don't get like stringies or chunkies like this stuff. We don't want this stuff in our hot dog. But, you know, from everything that I've found, some people use 1,000 grams of like chuck roast and then 125 grams of just straight lard. But I found a chef online, credit to Binging with Babish, where he uses a brisket flat that already has the fat integrated and it's part of the same animal. So this is the only source of meat we're gonna be using. So I'm gonna cut out 1,125 grams of this into cubes, and we're gonna put that in the freezer to firm up so that it doesn't clog and make our grinder really gross. So we have 1,150 grams of choice brisket cut up into chunks. So I still have probably half the flat left. So if these hot dogs come out good, which I'm fully expecting them to, we can make another batch, maybe adjust some seasoning and different things from there. What I'm gonna do with this is I'm gonna put this in the freezer for about 20 minutes so it firms up. We don't want it frozen, but we also don't want it real squishy like this. We want it as cold as possible, but not frozen. Also, my grinder parts have been in the freezer for about an hour, so everything will be nice and cold when we go to turn this into minced beef or ground chuck. It's really all the same thing. All right, while we wait for that beef to get nice and firm in the freezer, we're going to mix up our spices / cure mixture. So what we have here is we have 23 grams of fine sea salt. Put that in there. We have 10 grams of paprika. I got this smoked paprika from this local place in St. Charles that make their own spices. It's really good. I've used it a lot. I have 5 grams of garlic powder, 4 grams of white pepper, powdered, not black pepper. You don't want those peppercorn chunks in your hot dogs. I have 4 grams of onion powder, not onion salt, and probably the most important ingredient here, 1.5 grams of pink curing salt. This is also called Prague powder number 1. This is toxic if consumed, but when it's mixed with spices and meat and it is allowed to cure for 12 to 24 hours, it makes everything safe to eat at a lower temperature. So anytime you eat ham or lunch meat or hot dogs, bologna, it always has this ingredient in it. Babish would be nice and proud of my tiny whisk. So we're gonna tiny whisk all of this together and then set it aside. Once our beef is done firming up in the freezer, we'll grind it. We'll add this mixture to it. We'll grind it a second time, and then we're gonna make what's called a farce. And I'll go over that with you here when we're ready for that. All right, we have our beef that's nice and hard. Very good. Very, very, very good. It's not frozen, but it's just firm. Our grinding attachments have been in the freezer for quite some time. So we're gonna get this on medium. All right. And we're gonna start grinding. Here we go. And my chunks are too big. Okay, I'm gonna cut some meat. You're right. Round 2, let's try this again. Chunk. Meat chunk. Meat chunk. And where's it down? Hey, here it goes. And some more. This is hard to do with one hand. I should use a tripod in future videos. Look at that. Oh, got caught on my stuffer. Pounder or whatever we want to call it. Well, I'm not going to take a video of this whole process, but this is how the meat grinder works. I'll be back. Okay. It's done. I learned some things about this meat grinder. It's real important to have this way tight. Also, like, this requires a lot more downward pressure than you would probably expect. But I have a nice pebbly ground here. We're gonna add our seasoning to it, and then we're gonna grind again and make like a meat spaghetti. All right, so now we're gonna grind this a second time. Just so that we can get as fine of a grind as possible and get all of those. Oh wait, I want to use a different bowl. But we're gonna grind this as fine as possible, get all of the spices and the curing salts really well integrated into the meat, and then we're gonna cover it with plastic wrap right down on the meat so that it doesn't oxidize, and let it sit in the fridge for 24 hours. There you have it, meat spaghetti, just like I said. All of our curing salts and seasonings are really well integrated into the pebbly mixture. And so the next thing we're gonna do is make a farce. So for that, I'm gonna get out a food processor, and we're going to mix this, we're gonna process this meat mixture with 230 grams of crushed ice. And it's gonna form like a meat paste. That'll have to cure in the fridge for 24 hours. And then all we have to do is use the same attachment, only without the blade on the inside, and it's got a long tube on it. And it gets sausage casing that's edible. And then we fill the sausages, we twist them into lengths, and then we cold smoke them out on the grill with mesquite and hickory at 150 degrees for 1.5 to 3 hours until they hit an internal temperature of 120. And we can grill them and eat them. More to follow. Got our ice weighed out. 230 grams, going in a food processor, and we're hitting it. I don't know about you guys, but that sure looks like a meat paste to me. We're gonna do this in 2 batches so that I don't burn out the motor on this really nice kitchen toy. All right, ladies and gents. The initial part is done. This is our meat paste. This is actually called a farce. So what I'm doing now is I'm smashing it down to the bowl. Want to get all the air pockets out that I can. And then I'm gonna cover it in clear plastic wrap. And like I said earlier, I'm gonna press the wrap directly onto the meat so that air doesn't get to it and it doesn't oxidize while it is curing in the refrigerator. But this gonna make a lot of hot dogs. Get that guy out of there. A lot of hot dogs. It's gonna be good. All right. Plastic wrap directly onto the meat. Squeeze out the major air bubbles. And now this is going to cure for 24 hours. At which time we'll pull it out, case it, smoke it, and then I'll also make some homemade hot dog buns. Not sure if I'm gonna do this tomorrow. Today is New Year's Eve and we're going to a party tonight. I wish I would have been able to do this yesterday and then make the hot dogs today for the New Year's Eve party, but you know, I have what's it called? A job. But I had to work. So we'll get this all cured either tomorrow or maybe Sunday afternoon. We'll case them, grill them up, and see if maybe some friends can come over and taste test. It's been 24 hours and our farce is cured and amazing. This is safe to eat now if I want it, but you know, I don't. So we're about to start the sausage stuffing process. So I have here some sheep casings that are being soaked in water, which I don't know. It looks like a little, you know, it's kind of yucky. I don't know what this is. So this is definitely a first experience for me that I'm gonna trial and error through. But we're gonna get these sausages stuffed and twisted into links and then get them on the cold smoker at 150 degrees with mesquite. Well, these are my first try. I had one blow through. I'm gonna try and smoke these anyway. But this is my second try. There is definitely a learning curve to this, 100%. The biggest thing I'm struggling with is that this thing sucks. And not just because of the mechanism itself, but this food stuffer is not solid. And so it's all escaping throughout these air pockets here. And as I stuff, it's messing up. So my hero, AKA my wife, is running up to Best Buy and buying me the Good Metal KitchenAid sausage stuffing and meat grinding attachment. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and get these on the smoker, and then when she comes back, I'll finish stuffing these sausages and throw them in the fridge, and I'll smoke the rest of them tomorrow. So we're gonna start cold smoking. I have some oak lump charcoal with some hickory chunks and some mesquite chips. And I'm doing just a really tiny snake method. Here, this will help. Doing a really tiny snake method. So I just start one end and I let the fire kind of burn its way around this way. And so I'm gonna keep the hot dogs all the way on this side to keep far, far away from direct heat. And it's nice and cold outside. It's like 33 or 34 degrees. So as long as I keep the fire low, keep control of my vents, and I have a thermometer that I'm gonna be keeping an eye on it's Wi-Fi. It's really cool. You know, I don't want this to get more than 150, maybe 160 degrees. So we're gonna get this up to temp, add our hot dogs, and then smoke for a couple hours. We'll be good to go. Smoke. Trying to get back up to temp. I'm kind of struggling getting the temp just right because it's so cold out here, but it's starting to look good. Right. Keep that fire hot. We'll be good to go. That's right where we want to be. Internal temperature of 140 on the dogs themselves. Oh. Yes, sir. Look at this. Look at this. Got our sacrificial dog here. Ooh, that's hot. We're gonna pull these in, cool them off, maybe clean some of the black stuff off before we vacuum seal, and then these are good dogs. These came out absolutely incredible. I mean, the texture, the snappiness, I mean, everything is, this is my sacrificial dog. I needed that to test the internal temperature. You know, there are a couple with like some empty cavities on the inside, but for the most part, these came out just stunningly incredible. So I just vacuum sealed up a package for my parents. I'm gonna head down to DeSoto here in a few minutes. Carrie is still on her way back with the better sausage stuffer, so I'm gonna throw my casings and my farce back in the fridge, and then when we get back from my parents' house, I'll stuff the rest of these and we can keep going tomorrow. This is great. My wife is the coolest person on the planet and got me this upgraded meat grinder and sausage stuffer. It's metal, it's got a better capacity. It's just got, you could just tell right away, it's better quality kitchen tool all the way. We're gonna stuff the rest of this farce And then since it's so late, we're gonna put the rest of these sausages in the fridge overnight and I'll smoke them up in the morning. Yay! I'm excited to try this new one. I'll bet things improve immediately. I'll let you know. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's hot dog day. Before I put the rest of the dogs on the smoker, I'm making up some homemade hot dog buns. So I have a half cup of milk, 3/4 of a cup of water, and 2 tablespoons of butter that I heated a little hotter than I wanted to. I wanted to get it up to 110. It looks like we're at 123, so I'm waiting for that to cool down. Once I hit 110 degrees, I'll be adding a packet of active dry yeast and a tablespoon of sugar to give it a snack. And then we're gonna let that bloom for 10 minutes. And then on the scale, I weighed out 250 grams of bread flour, 250 grams of all-purpose flour, and a 1.5 teaspoons of kosher salt. We gave this guy a tiny whisk. Actually, we gave him a tiny whisk and then a sort of tiny whisk. And we're just waiting for our yeast liquids to get to temperature so that we don't kill the yeast by having it too hot, but we also want it warm enough to where it's eating the fuel so it has time to bloom. So we'll get that in there. This will bloom for 10 minutes. We'll put a beaten egg in here. We'll throw our dry ingredients in here and we're gonna mix with the dough hook. And we are going to let that go for about a minute until it's all combined on low, and then we're gonna turn it up to medium for 5 to 8 minutes until we have a smooth, tacky, supple ball of dough. I'll get back with you guys once we're to that point. All right, before we add our dry stuff, we're gonna throw this full beaten egg in here. Now that's been 10 minutes. All that eggy goodness out of there. Don't leave anything behind. Alright, we're gonna slowly add the dry ingredients, mix on low for 1 minute, and then we're gonna crank it up to medium and mix, really beat or knead, that's the word I'm looking for between 5 and 8 minutes, probably closer to 8. Half of it, the other half. And all nice and mixed together. Beautiful. Keep this bowl out because we're going to need another beaten egg later once we brush down the tops of the buns. That comes after everything rises and rests and all that good stuff. Slide this down, just make sure we get everything. That's nicely incorporated. So let that get just a little bit more solid. There we go. Now we're going to put it on medium for roughly, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 minutes. It'll pick up all the stuff on the bottom and really knead that dough, get that gluten formed and all those ingredients to get to know each other real well. So this is a little violent. Actually, I'm going to crank it down 1 notch. It's a little violent, but it's supposed to look like that. This way, I don't have to flour this whole workstation and knead it with my hands. No thanks. Right, it's been about 7.5, 8 minutes or so. Take a look at this. It should be smooth and tacky. Oh, it's pretty tacky. How smooth it is. Oh yeah, this is great. This is great. Yep. So, we'll take that out for a minute. I'm going to wash this bowl out, dry it, and then we are going to grease it up really well because it has to rise with plastic wrap covering it for 1 hour. So if you're going to use the same bowl, make sure to wash it. You want to make sure it's very dry. You don't want any excess moisture in here messing up this pretty dough you just made. So to grease these bowls while you're waiting for them to rise, you can use vegetable oil, you can use olive oil, really any cooking oil that acts as a lubricant. I like using Crisco because it's the cleanest and the most, I really try to say this, taste-free. It's not going to add any flavor. So like if you use olive oil, there we go. Just be a nice ball. If you use olive oil, it has the potential to add that olive oil flavoring into your dough, and that's not really what we're looking for here. So cover this guy with plastic wrap. We want to avoid that. Beautiful. Beautiful. Right. We're going to let this rise for an hour or until doubled in size. Hey Siri, set a timer for 1 hour, please.
1 hour, starting now.
Perfect. And, you know, as most internet chefs will tell you, it's very important to be polite to Siri so that she accurately tracks your time. All right. Next time you see me, it'll be 1 hour, or this will have doubled in size. And it took right at exactly almost an hour. We're going to turn this out. Right. We are going to flour the top and the bottom. And then the tricky part, rolling this out. I had a big rolling pin, but I can't seem to find it. So we're gonna roll this out nice and evenly. We're gonna try and divide it into 10 equal pieces. And once we get 10 equal pieces, we're gonna cut it. We're gonna kind of stretch them out, fold them over each other, and then form into little torpedoes. Here. This to be roughly the same length. Oh yeah, that's going well. Great. Not length, same thickness across. We don't want there to be a thin spot or a thick spot. There we go. make this work. That was 9, but whatever. It's fine. Over each other, stretch, fold, stretch, fold, and kind of roll it out. I used too much flour, I think. That's okay. Gonna kind of form into like a little torpedo. And it's alright for one. I'm starting to think I like green pretty better. Here we go. Here we go. Well, these might be little bitty buns. Terrible. There we go. Okay, there we go. All right. Perfect. We're going to spray this down with some nonstick spray. Just because we're going to cover it with plastic wrap. We don't, where's my plastic wrap? There it is. And we do not want to, we don't want the rolls to be sticking to the wrap. Doing this so that they can double in size again. This is going to allow the dough to kind of meld into itself, and when it's staying, we're covering it so excess air doesn't get to it. So double in size. This shouldn't take more than maybe 30 minutes or so. Then we're going to brush them down with a beaten egg and throw them in the oven. So my buns have not quite doubled in size yet, but I just pulled these hot dogs off the smoker, and I gotta say, man, that looks awesome. I mean, that just looks awesome. Awesome. So let's find that. Here's a teeny tiny one. Tell you what. We're gonna do a little taste test here. Snappiness. Ooh, it snapped. Oh, looks like they're not quite cooked all the way through. So I am going to, I think, put these in the oven for a little bit. But since we used the curing salt, they're safe to eat. And the flavor's there. Oh, the flavor's there. Well, I'm glad I checked out. Aren't quite as solid as I want in the middle. So I'm gonna put these back on that baking sheet. I'm just gonna toss them in the oven for a little while so that the internal temperature hits where it needs to, and these are cooked all the way through. More to come. Now we're in business. These just hit 160 degrees internal temperature, and they are for sure cooked through now. They're good and solid. Not feeling any flop. Oh, don't want to do that. Floppiness or looseness. I'm just going to get them on this cooling rack so that they cool. friends come over later, I'm gonna want to grill these on the flat top with some onions and maybe some steam. Really, really, really good. Those look amazing. All right, so our buns have doubled in size. We are gonna throw them in a 350-degree oven for 15-25 minutes, but first, important part, you gotta brush them down with a beaten egg first. So let me grab my egg and get that right down. One second. Egg beaten. Brush these down. This will give them that nice golden color on top when they come out of the oven, or as they're baking in the oven, I guess I should say. Right. I probably should have grabbed a smaller knife, but I'm gonna cut some lines in these. I think maybe they'll split apart a little bit while they bake and give you that really cool, like, hoagie or, you know, like hot dog bun look. Probably gonna be the best bun out of this whole bunch. Alrighty, into a 350-degree oven for 15-25 minutes, and then I can make onions, clean the kitchen. We're ready for friends. Let's get in. Oh man, it smells good. Awesome. That is awesome. So not the prettiest hot dog buns in the world, but they will definitely suffice. 100%. We're going to set this on the cooling rack. We're going to let these cool completely, split them in half, grill up our hot dogs, and it's time to eat. So good. Alrighty. Having a good old time.
Yes, sir.
We're having these hot dogs. The buns are gone already. I got Sire's dog on the grill. I got my dogs here I'm about to chow down on. It's good stuff. First one, lightly smoked dog, caramelized onions and mustard.
Juicy.
Oh yeah, juicy. Oh my God. Heavy smoked ketchup and mustard.
That's where it's at. Got a little bit in your beard.
All right, guys, I'm back down in my office. It was a great weekend, full of making foods. The hot dogs came out just absolutely incredible. I'll be posting a video shortly of the stroganoff, really smothered steak that I made for New Year's Eve. You know, really, guys, any feedback is welcome. You know, I hope you're enjoying the content. Let me know if there's something you'd like me to give, you know, something you'd like me to try, something you think that maybe I could have done better. You know, I know that the next time I do this, there will be some things I do a little bit differently to help me out. But guys, I'm just really loving all of these processes and these projects, these experiments. So really, keep up the feedback, stay active in the channels, and then we'll see you guys soon.